Ninajirachi.
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 The wonderful Ninajirachi from the Central Coast, DJ, producer.
Give it up for Ninajirachi!
Hey, I'm Nina.
And that is Ninajirachi.
If you're a fan of electronic music and you haven't been living under a rock the past year, then the name Ninajirachi should ring a bell. This past fall, the budding Australian producer released her debut album, I Love My Computer, which landed her a massive 8 ARIA Award nominations while taking home the win for 3 of them. She recently wrapped up the first leg of her sold-out North American tour and is geared up for what should easily become her biggest year ever in 2026. With the colossal success of her debut album putting her in the spotlight, it might appear that she's a bit of a newcomer to the scene, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. She's been releasing music and growing a loyal fan base for over a decade, and the success of I Love My Computer is just the next step in the creation of her legacy. But in order to understand why the album has resonated so deeply with millions of fans, we'll have to take a trip back in time to see all of the ways in which Ninajirachi was influenced as a child, and how she used those influences to fuel what has become the biggest success of her career thus far. This is the story of Ninajirachi. Ninajirachi, also known as Nina Wilson, grew up in the small suburb of Kincumber on Australia's central coast, which is about a 95-kilometer drive north of Sydney. Since she grew up so close to the coast, she has a lot of memories of going to the beach as a child, but some of her strongest and most influential early memories involve music that her parents introduced her to.
I feel like I've listened to dance music for ages because my parents were really into dance music, so they were like big clubbers in like the 80s and 90s. They loved, that kind of stuff back then before I was in the picture.
As avid fans of electronic music in the 90s, they shared their love for that music with Nina, introducing her to legendary artists like Daft Punk and the Prodigy. In her interview with Anthony Fantano, she said that she vividly remembers the song Love at First Sight by Kylie Minogue, whom her mother is also a big fan of. Her mom told her that when she first saw her the day she was born, it was love at first sight, so that's a huge reason why the song has stuck with her all these years. She also recalls having early memories of listening to the radio in the car with her dad and walking around the house singing Forever by the Veronicas. She also loved the Pussycat Dolls, especially the popular song Don't Ya.
Don't you wish your girlfriend was hot like me?
She actually loved that song so much that she even brought her mom's copy of the CD to school one day for show and tell. But her musical influences didn't just come from hearing and sharing music. She got her start playing the piano at age 5 and started playing the clarinet a couple years after. Outside of music, she was exposed to a lot of the typical media that you would expect for a kid who grew up in the early 2000s, especially video games. Things like Neopets, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Animal Crossing Wild World, and Super Paper Mario, which she actually references in the title of her 2020 EP, Bloomiere. But to her, these were more than just video games. She was also heavily influenced by their soundtracks, and she even credits these influences for playing a major role in some of her early music. She even said that Pokemon Mystery Dungeon made her cry when she was 8 years old because it's such a beautiful game. And by the way, guess what Pokemon makes an appearance in that game after you beat it? Jirachi. And since she grew up in a small town with not much to do, it makes perfect sense that a lot of her stimulation came from technology and media. So it should also come as no surprise that she began her production journey at just 8 years old. In an interview with Mixmag, she revealed that she looked forward to getting home from school every day so that she could use the family iMac computer to produce her own music in GarageBand.
I was literally just little and on GarageBand like dragging in Apple loops, and then I would just record through the MacBook mic over the top of it, like my clarinet or like something like that. So that's my earliest times using it, but I really wasn't trying to make music. I was just kind of being like, oh, this loop goes on top of that one and that's cool, and I made a song.
Right around this time, she was getting into the electro house inspired pop of the late 2000s with artists like Lady Gaga and Britney Spears who were bringing 4-on-the-floor beats to mainstream radio. She would then use iMovie to make homemade music videos for her favorite tracks.
So I would make music videos for Lady Gaga, Dance in the Dark, Your Love Is My Drug by Kesha, Lily Allen 22. I did so many. I did some more Kesha ones, some more Lady Gaga ones. Alejandro, I did an Alejandro one.
This was also the time period in which YouTube began to gain widespread adoption, and Nina became a frequent user of the site. She would download music from YouTube and then load it onto her iPod Touch so that she could listen on her hour-long bus ride to school every day. She references this in the track iPod Touch from her new album, where she talks about her iPod Touch with a cracked screen and a yellow Pikachu case, scoring the bus ride home, turning a Monday into a memory. These lyrics are very personal and hyper-specific to her own experience in childhood, yet they're also extremely relatable for anyone who grew up around that same time period, which is one of the reasons why her album resonates with so many people. Another lyric in that song mentions dyed frayed high waist bought at Supre, which is referencing her love for denim, which she would often customize herself. And her love for denim indirectly played an enormous role in becoming who she is today, which probably sounds like it doesn't make any sense, but let me explain. One day when she was 12 years old, she was watching tutorials on YouTube on how to tie-dye denim, and one of the videos that she came across had some background music that piqued her interest. Want to take a guess at what it was? None other than Madeon's famous pop culture mashup. She loved it so much that she decided to look up what it was, and then she discovered Madeon and dove headfirst into his catalog of music and instantly became obsessed. From there, she started to dig for other artists who sounded like Madeon, and that's when she came across Porter Robinson, who she considers to be one of her biggest musical influences of all time. I also want to mention that there are a lot of similarities that we can draw between Ninajirachi and Porter Robinson, but we're gonna get to that in a little bit. So anyway, as soon as she discovered Madeon and Porter, she immediately knew that she wanted to get serious about producing and learn how to produce music at a much higher level. She hopped on Google to figure out what software that Porter Robinson uses, and after discovering that he uses FL Studio, she got her own copy and got to work, learning primarily through YouTube tutorials. Not much later, she got to see Porter Robinson live in concert for the first time when she was in year 8, which would have made her about 12 or 13 years old at the time.
So the first time was when I was in year 8, and it was an under 18s DJ set at the Emerald Theatre, and it was so fun.
To be clear, this was in Porter's Spitfire era, which is really insane to think about because I feel like the majority of his current fan base was introduced via Worlds or Nurture, and a lot of the Spitfire fans kind of fell off because Worlds was just too much of a switch up. But Nina was not one of those fans who fell off, and she is still a huge Porter Robinson fan to this day, and she even got to support him on his Australian tour dates for his Smile tour. Anyway, it seems pretty fitting that she became a fan in Porter's Spitfire era because both Spitfire and I Love My Computer utilize very raw and gritty saw wave electro leads, and it feels like there could be a lot of inspiration coming from Spitfire, whether conscious or not. Okay, now let's get back to where we left off. Around the time that she got serious about producing, Alt-J had just released their debut album, An Awesome Wave, which Nina took a lot of inspiration from, and she credits it with having a huge influence on her. Right around this time, as she was working on her production chops in FL as a young teenager, she launched her SoundCloud account and started posting tracks. I'm not sure if she was already using the name Ninajirachi at this time, and all of the tracks from that era have since been scrubbed from the internet, but I did learn that the name of the first track that she ever posted was called Stapler because it used a sample of a stapler that she got in a free sample pack.
It was so bad. I still have it. The first one, it was like 8 minutes long and so bad, but it's like really endearing.
When she was 14 years old, she got her very own laptop computer, which allowed her to go from listening to music on the bus ride to school to actually making it. In an interview that she did with Mixmag Australia, she said that this specific laptop is what made her realize that she loves her computer, with an emphasis on the possessive adjective, noting that she doesn't love computers or the computer, she loves her computer, hence the name of her debut album, I Love My Computer. Around the time that she got this laptop, she also discovered a new musical influence that would play a role in shaping her future music. That new influence was Sophie, who had just dropped her debut album.
I found Sophie's music when I was like 14, 15. I was doing a week of year 10 work experience at FBI Radio in Sydney, and Sophie's first album had just come out and they were playing the song Hard. It was on rotation. I was kind of primed to like it because I was already listening to a lot of kind of like SoundCloud music, and like EDM and stuff. It just was so brain scratching. I just never heard anything like it.
That internship with FBI Radio put Nina on their radar, and they started to pay attention to her music. This eventually paid off for her because a year or two after the internship ended, they ended up playing one of her tracks on the radio, which was one of her first big wins as an artist. I'm not sure which track they played, but given the timing, it probably was one of her older tracks that has been scrubbed from the internet, but I can't confirm that for sure. At the same time that this happened, she was also working an after-school job at the popular frozen yogurt chain called Yogurtland, where she heard the song Sugar by Maroon 5 so many times that it ended up becoming a guilty pleasure of hers. During her time holding down a job as a Froyo employee, she experienced even more success musically. She became a finalist in Triple J's Unearthed High competition in 2016 with her track Glass, which she didn't end up releasing until 2019. By this point, her musical reputation was growing very quickly, and this was about the time that her manager discovered her on SoundCloud, and after signing with him, things started to really pick up. She was DJing at her friends' birthday parties in her final 2 years of high school, both for fun and to get better at DJing, which was a skill that she was going to need because she said that her first real shows were, quote, so bad. So now with a manager on board, she started releasing songs officially and not just on SoundCloud. Her official debut single was released in 2017 called Pure Luck, featuring vocalist Freya Stair, and hopefully I said that name correctly. The track was very popular with her classmates, and she even played it at a school dance party where everyone knew all of the words and were singing along. But that track reached far beyond her high school, and I actually realized when making this video that it's in my SoundCloud likes from way back then, and I had no idea who Ninajirachi was at the time. It also landed her another spot as a finalist in Triple J's Unearthed High competition in 2017, and it also landed her some headline slots for a few listen out parties in Australia, plus her first music festival that same year. And keep in mind that she was still in high school while all of this was happening, so she had a lot to juggle in her life during that time. In the interview that she did with Catcalls, she revealed that she went to what she calls an academically selective high school. It was still a public school, but I guess the students who were well ahead of the curve are selected to go to this specific high school, or something like that at least. So given the nature of the school, she said that the vast majority of students there had ambitions to be doctors or lawyers, and here she was balancing an academically strenuous workload with a budding DJ career. Granted, she did say that once she graduated, her mental load was alleviated, but before that happened, things were about to get even crazier in her final year of school. Towards the end of high school, a 17-year-old Ninajirachi went with some of her friends to a concert in her hometown. The artist performing was a fellow Australian also named Nina Las Vegas.
And I was a fan of her. It was one of my first times going out after I turned 18. I went to her show on the Central Coast. Yeah, in my hometown. And she was like, we should make a song.
The song that they made together is called Thursdays, and they released it in 2018.
She was one of the first sort of new people that I'd done a session with. I hadn't really done much writing with other people. Even songs prior to that I had out, the features were just songs that were pitched to me or something like that. Yeah. So I hadn't really worked with people face to face.
She admitted that she was fairly nervous and lacking confidence in her first studio session with Nina Las Vegas, but she credits her with encouraging her and building her self-belief as a young artist. She elaborated on this in an interview with themusic.com where she said, "Maybe if I didn't meet her when I was 17, I would have kind of fallen through the cracks or been discouraged or something, but she's just lifted me up so much and given me so much." Nina Las Vegas owns her own record label called NLV Records, which has since become a home for Ninajirachi's music, as the vast majority of her releases since 2018 have been on NLV Records. Nina Las Vegas also introduced Ninajirachi to Coda Banks early on, and they have since gone on to release 13 collabs together between 2020 and 2024. About a year after meeting Nina Las Vegas and Coda Banks, the three of them had an incredible opportunity alongside fellow Australian artist KLP. Nike selected the four of them to make the official anthem for the Australian women's football team, also known as the Matildas, for the 2019 Women's World Cup.
Everything we ever dreamed of,
Right around this time in her life, she decided to abandon FL Studio in favor of Ableton. And not only that, but she also got a job at Ableton Live School in Sydney, which is a production school that's certified by Ableton. She taught students the ins and outs of the software, and she also claims to have learned a lot of new things herself through the experience.
I start by recording ambient sounds. I open the audio file in Simpler, chop it up in slice mode, copy my MIDI drum clip to this track. Each drum note triggers a different slice. I adjust the transient detection sensitivity, transpose the MIDI, and play with filter and envelope settings until I hear something I like. Layering sounds from the outside world makes my drums less predictable, and it helps me to glue my arrangements together.
Through this job, she got the opportunity to make the official demo project for Ableton Live 11, which was released in 2021. For those who have never used Ableton before, when you open it for the first time after downloading it, there's a fully produced song waiting for you in a preloaded project file. The idea is to show in-context examples of how all of the new features that were added in the update can actually be used. So yeah, if you've ever used Live 11, it was Ninajirachi who made that demo track. Over the following few years, her reach got bigger, her sound got more dialed in, and more opportunities started coming her way. Her 10-track collaborative EP with Coda Banks called True North was a massive success, with The Atlantic naming it the 8th best album of 2021. That same year, she made her Sable Valley debut with joint singles, which opened her up to a completely new demographic of fans. The following year in 2022, her track Stingray, which she had released in 2019, was used in Season 1, Episode 4 of Heartbreak High, which was an Australian TV drama series released on Netflix. So clearly, she had been building a lot of momentum for quite some time now, but 2023 is when things really started to heat up. You see, by this point, she had already built a name for herself and had achieved quite a bit of success, but most of the opportunities that she had by this point were solely in Australia. But in 2023, all of her momentum had snowballed to a point where she started getting opportunities to tour in the United States, hitting nearly all the major American cities that first year, plus appearances at Lollapalooza, Lost Lands, and Breakaway Bay Area. She also released a collab with fellow Sable Valley superstar ISOXO, and she closed out the year with the release of her 4x4 EP, which marked a big turning point for a few different reasons. For one, this was the first body of work that was mixed by fellow esteemed Australian producer Wave Racer, and that name might ring a bell for some of you, and anyways, he's been mixing all of her work ever since, including I Love My Computer. Until the release of the 4x4 EP, Nina had been mixing all of her own music, and she has said in the past that she sometimes would question her mixing choices and preferred the final product when it was mixed by Wave Racer. Secondly, this EP marks the beginning of a shift towards the harder 4-on-the-floor electro house sound that we hear in I Love My Computer. The 4x4 EP doesn't feel 100% committed to that sound, but it does seem to be where she leans into it harder. Oh, and by the way, the track Wayside from that EP is now in Fortnite. She channeled all of the high energy sound of this EP into the track All I Am from her debut album, which she had actually made back in 2023, right around the same time that she was making the 4x4 EP. She held onto it as an unreleased track and played it at a lot of shows in 2023, and it always got a strong crowd reaction every time. She knew that she had something special with this track, and it triggered the decision to make an entire album based around that one song, with plans to release it as the lead single. Granted, she kept that information on the down low and worked on the album in private while simultaneously having her biggest year yet in 2024. It included a slew of tour dates in the US, Australia, China, and Japan, plus her EDC Las Vegas debut and her Red Rocks debut when she got to open for Rez. On top of that, she released her Girl EDM EP, which showed a full commitment to this high-energy 4-on-the-floor sound, and it was the perfect predecessor to her upcoming album.
Girl EDM was actually my first headline show in LA last year. The green room was like all girls. That doesn't really happen. So we were just joking that it was the Girl EDM show. I had an EP that needed a title, and that felt like the right title for the music.
This brings us to 2025, which has undeniably been Ninajirachi's breakout year. She She started off the year on tour with her longtime idol Porter Robinson, and a few weeks later, she finally released All I Am as the lead single from her upcoming album. The track got a ton of support, and it also brought in a lot of new fans before the album even dropped. In unison with the release of All I Am, Ninajirachi quietly launched an alternate reality game in her Discord community by telling everyone to recite the numbers 4562 at her upcoming shows. When fans did this, they received a longer code which could then be used as a password to enter a secret website. More passwords were required to access various parts of the site, which contained things like documents and audio recordings, which led to more clues. Some passwords were even hidden in real-life locations, and others were mailed via postcard to fans' home addresses. Any fan who was able to complete the entire ARG then got news of the album announcement before the rest of the world. A lot of the website, story, and Discord messages where Nina and her team were putting the ARG together appear in the Infohazard music video, which now has over 1 million views on YouTube. In the final months before the album release, she dropped 3 more singles, including Fuck My Computer, iPod Touch, and Infohazard. All 4 tracks performed incredibly well, and anticipation for the album drop was at an all-time high. On August 8th, 2025, Ninajirachi's debut album I Love My Computer was finally released for the whole world to hear. It was a massive success and is now pushing towards 100 million streams across all platforms just 4 months later. Many fans on Twitter have referred to it as Worlds Part 2, referring to Porter Robinson's debut album, which has a cult following still to this day. And honestly, I agree with that take, and I think there's a lot to back it up. First of all, both albums share very similar themes that are based around nostalgia and the digital world. Now, to be fair, there are some nuances here, because Ninajirachi has said that I Love My Computer isn't nostalgic in the sense that she longs for those simpler times, but rather it's nostalgic in the sense that it revisits all of the factors in her early life that brought her to where she is today. I Love My Computer is more autobiographical, as it's Nina telling her real-world experience engaging with technology, whereas Worlds is more just inspired by Porter Robinson's engagement with technology, more specifically online RPG games when he was a kid, but it's expressed in a more fantasy-based personification, if that makes sense. But really the main comparison is just about how passionate fans are about both albums, and it's going to be really cool to watch how this album ages, because I would personally consider it a very strong contender to be Best Electronic Album of the Year. And for what it's worth, Anthony Fantano strongly prefers I Love My Computer to Worlds, as he gave I Love My Computer an 8, but Worlds only got a 5. I think a huge part of what made this album so successful, aside from the top tier production of course, is the fact that the experiences Ninajirachi shares in these lyrics are very relatable for a lot of people who were born in that late 90s to early 2000s window. And especially anyone who rode the bus to school, because 3 of the songs have references to things that she experienced on the school bus. iPod Touch, as I mentioned way earlier, is all about getting lost in her favorite music on her hour-long bus ride to and from school. But beyond that, it tells the story of the beginning of her production journey and the way in which her iPod Touch was kind of affiliated with that. The song Infohazard talks about the man without a head, which is referring to a time when some boys on the bus showed her a disturbing video. And then for the track Sing Good, she talks about her memories of listening to music on the bus with one headphone in her ear and the other headphone in her friend's ear, which was also a nearly universal experience for anyone who rode the bus to school around that time, back when all earbuds had wires. So my point with all of this is really just to say that these lyrics are hyper relatable for a certain demographic, and it's a huge reason why it connects so strongly with its intended audience. But these tracks also connect very strongly on the dance floor, and that was proved with Ninajirachi's sold-out fall tour, which I was lucky enough to attend. Fans were singing the lyrics to a lot of the songs, which is generally pretty uncommon in EDM, and it just shows how much love fans have for this album. And that love did not go unnoticed, because it was recognized by the Australian Recording Industry Association when Ninajirachi was nominated for 8 ARIA awards this year.
Are you feeling confident? You could win a lot of awards tonight. Maybe. I think I'll be happy either way.
A few moments later.
And the winner of the Michael Gudinski Breakthrough Artist Award is Ninajirachi!
And the ARIA Award for Best Solo Artist goes to Ninajirachi.
The ARIA for Best Independent Release goes to Ninajirachi.
So yeah, she totally cleaned up at the ARIAs, and rightfully so. Now with all of the red carpet stuff out of the way, she's back to the music grind, and she just made an appearance on Alice in Wonderland's new album with their collab called Heaven. She's looking ahead to 2026, which already has 25 shows planned, including her Coachella debut, which is going to be absolutely massive. Oh, and by the way, most of her US tour dates for the beginning of 2026 are already sold out, so that should be a good indicator of what the rest of her year is gonna look like. Ninajirachi's life story and career trajectory can really only be described as extremely rare. She got her start with music production at an unusually young age, and she was gaining serious credible recognition for her work by the time she was just 15 or 16. Now, I know that I've probably already overstated this, but it's just uncanny how similar her journey has been to her childhood idols Madeon and Porter Robinson, who also got their start unusually young. It only seems fitting since they were the ones who inspired her to take on this journey in music, and now she's building an entire legacy of her own, and most likely inspiring another future superstar producer just like herself. And the crazy part is, we're only witnessing the very beginning of that legacy, and I personally have a very strong belief in the future of her project. All I have left to say is don't sleep on Ninajirachi, because she is quite literally a legacy artist in the making.